There are many advantages to using modules. The first thing is that, like functions, it makes your code more organized and easier to read, okay, by separating functionality and grouping it into separate functions, just like we use with custom functions. Modules just sort of extends that a little bit further, and it says we're going to, not only are we going to make those functions custom, but we're going to now put them in a separate file, so we really have them out of our way when it comes to writing the main program. Makes your code more reusable. Okay, so if you have functions that you use all the time, let's say you get a job working in coding, and let's say it's for a company that does something with oil wells. It's a pretty resonant local phenomenon, right? A lot of oil companies hire a lot of programmers to do stuff for them, to find oil wells, to keep track of production, that sort of thing. Presumably, in that job where you're writing code all day, you're going to have some repetition in your work. You're going to be writing the same kind of programs over and over and over. You're going to be working with the same kind of functions a lot. And so you're not going to be one day writing code for a video game and the next day writing code for a database and the next day writing code for machine learning. You're going to be doing similar things day after day. And the nice thing about modules, if you use them, is that when you have that sort of repetition in your work, you can write custom modules and then you can just reuse them very easily because they exist in just these files that you can pass around. And the last thing that modules do really well for us is they make code more maintainable. Let's say in that scenario where you're coding for the oil company, that you have a module that you've used that is a good module. It kind of does what it wants or does what you want it to. And let's say you've used that same module, that one module, in 500 different programs that you've written, 500 different scripts. That's a lot. If you hadn't used a module for that, you would have had to have rewritten that same script, that same function over and over and over and included it manually in each of those programs. But if you use a module, the nice thing about that is someday you might want to upgrade that function. You might want to add error handling or some additional processing, or you might want to use a different algorithm than the first one you've used. And if you haven't updated, if you haven't used a module, then when you go to update that, you're going to have to go out and touch 500 different pieces of code and make sure that you update it correctly in all of those 500 different places. If you use a module and you're just referring to that module from those 500 different programs, you update one piece of code and it fixes everything. So it can make a massive difference in how much you work and how much time you spend doing things. In terms of a job, that equates to you looking good, or you making more money, or you getting promotions. So there's some advantages to using modules.